What's up, guys? This is Lord Botha, and today in this short video we are going to be covering Epic Games and their new coding standards for their Unreal Engine. This comes to us from Bounding into Comics. We're going to read this brief article here by Spencer Beculi. Sorry if I'm butchering the name. But it's entitled Unreal Engine Coding Standards Require Video Game Studios to Use Inclusive Language in Programming and Documentation. So we're going to go ahead and read the article, and then we're going to give some commentary about some of the larger problems that this kind of goes into with not just gaming but our society. So, in proving that identity politics have quite literally seeped into the DNA of video games, Epic Games has taken to encouraging developers who use their popular Unreal Engine to employ inclusive language in their respective titles' programming codes. First, added to the Unreal Engine's official coding standards with the April 22 release of the tool's 5th version, and recently brought to light courtesy of the April 2024 version, this new inclusive word choice clause sees Epic Games encourage a curious word choice, given that they consider following of the said standards to be mandatory. Users to use respectful, inclusive, and professional language when writing or documenting a given piece of code. Word choice applies when you use name, class, functions, data, structures, types, variables, files, folders, and plugins. It applies when you write snippets of user-facing text for UI, error messages, and notifications. It also applies when writing about code, such as in comments and in changeless descriptions. To this end, Epic Games has provided guidance as to what words devs should and should not use. So this is basically all the kind of classifications where they're supposed to use this kind of language and kind of police their own language. And again, they highly recommend this, but their highly recommended standards are also meant to be mandatory. So it's not really a recommendation, it's forced is what it is. Going on, they state, do not use metaphors or similes that reinforce stereotypes. Examples include contrast black and white or blacklist and whitelist, they began. Do not use words that refer to historical trauma or lived experiences of discrimination. Examples include slave, master, and nuke, which I assume when they're talking about nuke, they're talking about Japan with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Slave and master, of course, this relationship has gone on far beyond the transatlantic slavery that I'm sure that they're mentioning. Turning to gender-related language, Epic Games advises devs to refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular, and anything that is not a person as it and its, for example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. So they want you to refer to any actual gendered person as, or component, I guess, as a they, them, and their, in the even when they're in singular form, and anything that is not a person as it or its. So I don't really know any gendered form of computer parts or modules or plugins or anything like that. Maybe this is for specifically foreign elements to the English language, Spanish, other gendered languages, things like that, that use neuter nouns as well. The its and is clause, or it and its clause, I don't really know what else you would refer to these as anyway. I mean, it's not a person, so it and its makes sense. I guess they think maybe everyone's going around, these developers are going around like Scotty from Star Trek, saying, this captain, this These components, this servers, she's really let herself go. These servers really need to be updated, Captain. I don't know if they think that's how they are talking about servers or plugins or functions or anything like that, but it doesn't seem like people do that really a lot to me. Further, users are asked to not assign a gender to anything that does not have one, nor use collective nouns like guys that assume gender. And it also takes care to avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders like poor man's ex. So you can't refer to anything as a poor man's version because that would be, I assume, classist, and they want to avoid classist language. If you know anything about Marxism, I mean, that's where all conflict they believe stems from, is conflict between classes of some sort. Usually economic was the big one. Moving on. Regarding slang and the standards call on devs to remember that your words are being read by a global audience that may not share the same idioms and attitudes, who might not understand the same cultural references, and thus aim to avoid colloquialisms even if you think they are funny or harmless, which is interesting because there's a lot of languages where this removal of gendering of language, I feel, would cause even further confusion in some terms, especially with languages that are specifically gendered, that rely on male, female versions of their languages. Particularly as these may be hard to understand for people whose first language is not English and might not translate well. Well, as I just argued, this can go either way, right? The problem exists whether you eliminate this and refer only to the neutered versions, or you refer to the gendered versions. And of course, devs also warn do not use profanity. Well, yes, we don't want to be dropping F-bombs, I guess, in the server creation, component creation community of the developers. Continuing the standards, next ask Unreal Engine users to be conscious of their use of overloaded words, as many terms that we use for their technical meanings also have other meanings outside technology. Examples include abort, execute, or native. They detail. When you use words like always be precise, like these, always be precise, and examine the context in which they appear. It's weird that they choose these because while these do have connotations, implied meanings outside of their actual definitions, these words have existed long before those connotations. And in the context of this sort of realm, this sort of job, most people know that they're not referring to these things, and I feel could separate from those contexts. Policing these seem quite unnecessary. Abort, for example, just means to abandon something quickly or to stop something quickly. Execute means to perform a task, typically quickly. Native just means that it is original to the place that it is. I don't quite know or understand why we are specifically including these words as, potentially harmful because of their outside context when we already have the context of which they're being used in the job. Finally, the inclusive word choice clause closes out with the list of some terminology that Epic Games believes should be replaced with better alternatives. Said terminology includes terms blacklist, alternative lists listed includes deny list, block list, exclude list, avoid list, unapproved list, forbidden list, and permission list. White list, allow list, include list, trust list, safe list, prefer list, approve list, etc., etc. Master, primary source, controller, template, etc., etc. Slave replaced with secondary, replica, agent, follower, worker, etc., etc. Ultimately, Epic Games closes out the text of this new standard by assuring the public that they are actively working to bring out the code in line with the principles laid above. Now, as I was speaking about before, this in its full context is not really a problem just with gaming. Yes, we're policing what devs say, which makes their job more difficult because now they can't just think about actually creating the codes and then putting the codes with the terminology they can use or the broad terms of terminology they can use. They have to make sure that they fit within this specific bubble to use Epic Games' Unreal Engine. But the broader problem, societal problem, is actually that it's policing how people speak. This is essentially, 1984 newspeak. The idea that we no longer can use words such as excellent or amazing. Instead, we have to use words like good or double plus good, which is the idea that was brought about in 1984. Now, this problem is all about control of thought, right? So if we can control what people think about, if we can control the idea that they cannot use this idea of gendered language or the idea of using terms such as slave, master, nuke, if we can control what they think about, if we can control the language and what they speak about, we can control what they think about. If we can control what they think about, we can control what their future actions will be. Now, this applies to not just gaming, but in politics and economics, all that. It's all about manipulation into getting you to accept a new standard. Now, will that standard be good, or will that standard be very bad? I would argue personally that the standard that they're trying to set will take us down a negative road. Historically, the principles in which people who push this kind of agenda, this kind of extreme equality through exclusion, don't typically have us result in a good functional society. But what are your thoughts on this? Am I going too far in this sort of judgment? What are your thoughts on the inclusive language? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let me know in the comments section. If you like this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you guys for listening all the way through. There'll be more videos to follow for sure, and we will talk to you later.